All right, everybody, we are live for another discussion here on the Game Wisdom channel. I am Josh Beiser, and we are returning to our ongoing series looking at motivation systems or gameplay loops in game design. And my guest tonight is joining me for this discussion. So please welcome back from Project Ambitious Games. They're currently working on the title Revan, Silas. How are you doing?
Hey Josh, it's great to be back on the show. Love doing it.
Yep, it is great to have you back on. So, as always, for these kinds of casts, the goal is to examine a game's motivational systems or gameplay loops to figure out what we can learn or glean from how this design worked and what can designers take away if they want to design similar games. And we've been doing this for several times now. We try to do these once a month, usually at the beginning. So, for this month's cast, we're going to be focusing on Doom Eternal, Marvel Contest of Champions, and Ghost Recon Breakpoint. But before we get to that, as always, since you've been working on Revan, Silas, could you give everybody a little update as to what's going on with the game and what you have planned?
Yeah, so I'm actually really excited to announce that we are launching our first ever crowdfunding campaign for Revan. We are, I believe, at the time of this upload, live on Indiegogo, and we'll have a link to that campaign hopefully in the description for this video. So we are trying to raise some funding to finish the game. We are hoping to add dedicated servers to improve gameplay stability, just fix a lot of the bugs and performance issues that people have been giving us feedback on over the last few months. And for us to really do that seriously and move into dedicated servers and all of that, we're going to need you guys' help. We're going to need some money to pay for servers, some money for us to spend extra time working on the game and paying our artists, like that. So if you guys want to go check that out, it would mean the world to us to have support. Even if you can't back us right now, I know a lot of people are in a really hard place financially right now. We understand that. So, I mean, even if you can't give us anything, just share the campaign, tell other people about it who might be interested. We're basically doing founders packs for the game, so you can get some exclusive skins. You can get a really good discount on our premium currency. You'll be added to the game's credits. You'll get a special role in the Discord server. We're doing a desktop wallpaper pack.
Okay.
I'm going to try and push for us to get a mobile wallpaper pack as well. So we're just trying to give you guys a bunch of stuff to show our appreciation for helping us get the game from current state in closed alpha into an open beta, hopefully later this summer.
All right. And how long is the campaign running for?
All right, so the campaign's going to be running for, I believe, next 2 months. People can back it. So whenever this video goes live, you'll probably have about a month or a month and a half left to become a supporter. Yeah.
All right. Well, like I've said the last few times, definitely best of luck with Revan, and I hope the campaign goes well for you and the rest of your team.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. But with that, let's get to our analysis, and we'll begin with Doom Eternal. Okay. All right. If you want to pull up the chart, and we'll see how things will scale out here.
Yes. While you're sort of tweaking that, that seemed to come in pretty good. Yeah, what we usually do for these podcasts is we have this little chart that was provided in a GDC talk entitled Engines of Play. I highly recommend that everyone go and watch this talk. Anyone who's interested in game design, I think, should watch this talk. And in the talk, the speaker gives this wonderful chart, which is a sort of way of looking at a game's core design principles, figuring out what's important to the game that makes players want to play it. What type of game experience are you looking for if you're going to play this game?
All right, so we're going to be doing this with Doom first. And I guess what quadrant should we start out with?
Let's start from the top left, I guess.
All right, so let's see. On the subject of, and for those of you new, it's basically rated in basically like 3 scales. So the first point is, does the game have it? The second one is, does the game do it well? And then the third is this game a master or a really great example of that specific field. So,
Right.
with the idea of build versus explore, this is basically, does the game warrant like player creativity or player exploration, or is it more about kind of letting the player look into the game itself? So it's basically player progress or player focus or world focus, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I would say that with Doom 2016, it's a game that for me was very much focused on exploring the world. You have
Mm-hmm.
you have secrets and collectibles and finding different ways to move around the world and the different like weapon pickups and things like that. As a player, you don't have a lot of influence on the world. You don't really
Mm-hmm.
like create within the world. You're not customizing a lot of things. It's mostly looking around and like seeing what is already in the
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would maybe put either 2 or 3 for myself. It's such a big difference in terms of contemporary first-person shooters by the
world.
fact that the levels are a lot more open compared to, again, the Call of Duties and Battlefield and etc. etc.
Right, right. So yeah, so this is sort of an indication that we feel like the exploration in this game is like a big part of why people play it. I mean, I remember I was streaming Doom 2016 on Twitch a few months ago, and some of my viewers, they've played the game already, and they're like, "Go here, go, you'll
Mm-hmm.
find this item there." Like I think part of the culture of playing the Doom games is finding the stuff, right, and then sharing it with the community.
Mm-hmm. And all the Easter eggs, nods to previous games, and so on.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Um,
And they
and it,
also, I would also want to add that they also emphasize having collectibles and progression tied to exploration as well, because you have to upgrade the Marine by finding like the cores, the chips, and so on.
right, right.
So what would
So
you? Oh, go ahead.
I guess like um, in terms of like fantasy and realism, the game is extremely fantastical. You're fighting demons on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is the fantasy like the most important thing though, or is it sort of it has it and it's good? Because that's sort of where I feel is that Doom falls in that like it's got cool fantasy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's very cool, but it's also very campy. It knows it's campy, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not super focused on the world and the fantasy aspect there.
Yeah.
And in terms of realism, the most realism you get is like you have a shotgun. Like the game is
Yeah.
not all about being realistic, you know.
Yeah.
So that
It's
sort of leaves us with, I guess, that is our overall square.
yeah,
And
and there it's basically all falls on arcade logic. There's no aiming down the sights. There's no bullet trajectories to deal with. It's just point at enemy, click gun, or
yeah,
click it shoots the gun and you're gonna hit something. There's no RPG layer at all to it.
right, right. So speaking of clicking guns and doing the work of the game, I think Doom is a game that it has a certain level of skill. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
fast-paced game. Um, I've certainly died plenty of times in the game. So it definitely, if you enjoy being good at a game, right, there is something
Mm-hmm.
here for you. You know, is that like a main attraction of the game? Is the game about being hard to play?
Um, I wouldn't say it's hard to play, but it is very. What's the word I want to use? It can be very exhausting, I think, to play
Mm-hmm.
it. Because
Okay,
you're basically all the fights are arena based, so you're gonna be trapped in a room with anywhere from 10 plus demons all trying to kill you, and you
right,
are given a huge variety of options to get through it. And of course, you have to mention upgrades can be used to help if you're not the best FPS player.
right. So I guess in that way, I would say there is the option to play it on a lower skill level. You can play it on different difficulty settings. You can like you said, you can use the different upgrades or tools that are at your disposal. So there is a range of skill required in the game. In terms of work, which is sort of another way of saying
Hmm.
grind, is the game the type of game where you're doing the same thing over and over again to get results?
I would say yes. It's it's a very straightforward core gameplay loop. And there have been complaints that it does get repetitive the more you play. There's only so many ways you can, shoot an imp in the face with a shotgun. And then it's just repeating that same experience, just in a different environment.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe it's sort of it has work. It has that element of repetition, but it's not like like RuneScape or some other like type of MMO game where you're really grinding for things.
Yeah.
I feel like like you said, you are doing some repetition, but I'm not really aware of a cycle in Doom where you're like going back, like you're staying in a level area. Like I'm going to stay in this arena and just farm, right? You're not farming for items in Doom.
Yeah.
You sort of clear an arena and then move on, right?
Yeah. I kind of described it as like it's kind of like eating nothing but cake. It's delicious, but you're eventually going to get tired of just the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. Okay. So what about the? I always like to pull this one up. So what about the harmony graph? Is the game, is it about combat or cooperating with the world?
It's definitely combat. I think. Yeah, you're not going to be talking to the demons and convincing them not to fight you. This is not Undertale.
Yeah, it's all about combat, right? Like Doom is all about combat. You like good combat. People have said a lot of really good things about the shooting in Doom, and the guns and the different mechanics like that. So there's no co-op, there's no multiplayer in the campaign. It's you, shotgun, and some demons. In terms of mechanics versus context, and context sort of being lore, and storytelling, world building, and I do want to remind us and our viewers that like these aren't opposing spectrums. These are just sort of different spectrums that go in different directions. You can have both. You can have strong mechanics and you can have strong story. You can have neither. You can have co-op and combat. You can have all of these things, and they're not really mutually exclusive.
Yeah, and also just to clarify, this is not a review score here. Like there is no, because of this rating, this game gets a 10 out of 10. Like this is just more of a design exercise rather than a formal review.
Yeah, we're just sort of looking at like, okay, what was important to the designers? If you were going to make, if you were making Doom 2016, what were you prioritizing to come up with this result?
Yeah. So Doom versus Doom Eternal, I think this is where it gets very interesting because a lot has been said of them trying to add more pulp to the story with Doom Eternal. Now, I haven't had a chance to play it yet, so I can only go by hearsay and seeing people mention it. But there's definitely more in terms of cutscenes. The Doom guy has his own Doom style, like was it a Fortress of Solitude or something like that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's also what I've heard about Doom Eternal is that it has much more of a story aspect to it. And for this analysis, I think we're focusing on Doom 2016, which in my playthrough there is story. It's not absent of story. There is some, and it's campy. The developers know it's campy. They knew it's cheesy, and they embraced it, which was, I think, a really good idea. But it's also not why you played the game. It's sort of like the flavoring on top. And if you're like a real fan, you might be like, yeah, I want to know more about the story, as you get interested in it.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, it's similar to something like Dark Souls in terms of its storytelling, that it's all kept very passive. It's there if you want it, but the game's not going to stop to tell you the story.
Right. I mean, the Doom guy literally like grabs the tablet and throws it away as soon as the guy starts talking, like the opening scene. 2016, like they start telling you stuff, and he's just like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna smash buttons, throw things down the way." You can just keep walking if like they're telling you about the lore. You can just walk away.
Yeah.
So like even the character, the protagonist, is sort of disrespectful to the storytelling. He's like, I don't care, which is really cool, I think.
Yeah.
So mechanically though, is how important or how complex? Not really, but like how important was the mechanics in Doom?
I would say I would rank that as 3 in terms of importance for Doom. Like this was a game that it had to follow Doom 3, which a lot of people did not like. They felt that it betrayed kind of the essence of Doom. Like Doom is not a horror game. It takes place in a horror setting, but it basically, if the gunplay, if the feel of actually killing these demons was off, it would have failed. Like, everyone would have looked at this as just, another horrible example of Doom. And
Yeah.
it is one of those games, again, like, I'm sure, like, your audience, when you were playing, have said, like, when it's firing on all cylinders, it's just an amazing experience.
Yeah, I mean, I love Doom. I love
Mhm.
Doom 2016. I want to play more of it. I feel bad that I haven't beat the game yet. That's rare. Like, it's very rare that I feel bad that I haven't beaten a game because, like, I have so much limited time. But there are certain games on my list I'm like, I need to beat that. I owe it to that game because of how good it is. Doom
Yeah.
2016 is on that list.
And I need to. The only thing I haven't done in Doom 2016 is beat it on Ultra Nightmare, which I think my skill has a. I think that's where my skill is capped. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to beat it on that difficulty.
Man, I think I played on like one of the easy levels, easy modes. I just haven't put the time in. I really want to though. I mean, we're in quarantine now, so I've got all the time in the world. I really have no excuses,
I still have the excuse. I have to make all these videos and articles. So time.
Yeah.
I still don't have it. Free time, people. Maybe someday.
Yeah, I think Doom, The Witcher 3's final DLC with Blood and Wine. I need to finish that at some point in my life. I'm going to finish that. Very important to me that I do that.
And
I'm not sure there's other games that are really like those. Might be the two games right now that I can think of that are like I need to finish these. I want to see how it ends.
If you think that's bad, I bought Assassin's Creed Odyssey on sale earlier today. I still haven't played through Origins, 3, Black Flag. I got like 5 Assassin's Creed.
I think I owned every Assassin's Creed game except for Odyssey. And I haven't bought Odyssey because I've played like 5 hours of Origins. I bought Origins, oh man, it was like November of 2017 or something. I remember I bought it like on my birthday. It was on sale. I had a coupon and everything. Like, I bought it. I was like, I love Assassin's Creed. This is one of my like birthday gifts to myself. And like I played the tutorial and just kind of like, it's been sitting on my hard drive. Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast I could do talking about Assassin's Creed. Huge fan of those games, and I could talk for hours about my opinions on them. But maybe first we should finish this one about Doom.
Yeah.
So Doom as a game, it has multiplayer, right? It has a PvP multiplayer element.
Yeah,
I mean, we can give it it has it.
Yeah.
Is it good? I've never played it.
Me neither. I would say, like, if we were rating Doom Eternal, it would probably then go up to 2 pips, because I've heard a lot of people say how much of a difference the 2-on-1 multiplayer mode is.
Okay, all right. I guess for now, given our limited experience, we'll just say it has it. Thrilling versus calm. I'm just gonna fill that one in right there.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're not gonna give anything for calm. It's not a calm game.
No.
And it is a single player experience. I think it's a game that you play by yourself. Just rating the single playerness of the game is sort of difficult. In some ways, it's like, is this a game that's fun to play by yourself? Are you? I think it is. I think it's sort of designed around being a single player game.
Yeah, it's a game that's very much about the person behind the screen playing it, rather than, I think, the people watching it. Unless you're watching a speed run or grandmaster play of it, it's very much a game about you unwinding to killing a bunch of demons with a lot of metal playing in the background.
Right. Okay, so yeah, I'd say this is a fairly accurate representation of what is Doom 2016. What type of player psychology. Why do you want to play this game? All right. I guess we should talk about a game that I've never heard of or played. The Marvel game you mentioned to me.
All right. So, in the limited free or extra time I have now, the whole pandemic going on, it has given me a chance to try out more mobile games and really stick my hand into the pay-to-win, free-to-play murkiness of that genre. So, Marvel. Now, I've been playing Marvel Strike Force here and there for the last few years. At most, I have spent $4 on that game, so you can tell I am a huge whale when it comes to the free-to-play market. And Marvel Contest of Champions is another one. This one came out, I think, I want to say 3-4 years ago, somewhere around there.
Okay.
It's considered one of the highest rated games of like the whole Marvel licensing the Marvel IP to the free to play market. It is essentially a character collector slash fighter. So you
Okay.
collect Marvel heroes, villains. They fight each other. Every character is categorized by a class. So it's like a mutant, brawler, science, stuff like that. That
Okay.
determines who's strong against what. And then
Okay.
every character has different passives, abilities, synergies with other ones. So for instance, like Doctor Doom, he gets a power that every time an enemy is hit by electrical damage while they're fighting him, he can get a free stun while that guy is being affected by electricity.
Okay. Okay. I understand the basic loop here, I think.
Yeah. And everyone has like a super meter. As it builds up, you get special attacks. The tier 3 special is basically like the super that we see from like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, and so on, with the
Okay.
exception being that when it goes off, it's unblockable and unavoidable. And that can lead to some balance issues that I'm going to be bringing up in the coming minutes.
Okay.
So the only other thing left to mention, of course, it is free to play. This is loot box 10 million in terms of
Oh
how
no.
things work. Everything and anything. Thank you, Kat. Well, it would be weird we had the same doorknobs. That would be if we were in the same room. But everything in this game has a loot box attached to it. It is again like this is just is 100% the best and worst example of free to play design in that regard. Like it epitomizes everything that you can hear about what's great about free to play games and everything that is horrible that my core audience rages at when we talk about free to play design.
Okay. Okay. This is interesting.
So and I'll let you have your and when we talk about Ghost Recon, you'll have there you go. My headset just went out again.
Oh, there we
Okay.
go. There we go.
All right, but like I said, when we talk about Ghost Recon, I'll let you kind of explain it to me in terms of its lore or its core gameplay loop and so on.
Sure. Sure.
So, if you want to pull up the chart here, this should be a very interesting one because I think this is the second free to play game that we covered. The first one, of course,
Yes.
being Warframe.
Yes. We talked about Warframe, which I think a lot of people have agreed is um, one of the best free to play models. At least I believe so.
Yeah.
Personally for me, Warframe is one of those games I look at and I say that's how to do free to play. That's how I would do free to play. That's how I want to do.
Yeah,
You know.
and that's why this is why I suggested Marvel Contest of Champions because this is going to, I think, be the antithesis of Warframe.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about it.
All right. What quadrant should we start at this time?
I guess I'm curious off the bat. Is this a game that is it's multiplayer, right? It's a
Hmm.
multiplayer game. It's a mobile game where you're playing against other people, right?
It is you'll play against excuse me AI AI controlled teams of other players, and they do have
Okay.
kind of like the alliance or guild modes where you and your other friends will try and complete a map. So you're not necessarily playing together as I'm playing against you, but we're kind of co-oping together, and
Okay.
there is competition in terms of like an arena. So whoever gets the most points gets the most rewards when that arena is over. So
Okay. So you're playing. You're sort of playing moment to moment by yourself. You don't have to like
yeah,
communicate with the team or anything. But there is a larger meta that
yeah,
revolves around what the other players have and who's in your alliance and things like that.
yeah. But yeah, it is definitely more focused on that on solo fighting play. So it's 1v1 is the
Okay.
main core gameplay.
Okay. So if I'm coming into this game, am I looking for a group experience or am I looking for an experience where I'm playing by myself?
Hmm. I think
What do you think is the target audience of this game? Or
it's
is it both?
definitely more solo than
Okay.
multiplayer.
Okay. So maybe we'll just sort of say like, hey, this is a game that if you're looking for a game to play on your phone, which is usually
Mm-hmm.
you're waiting in the lobby, you're sitting
Mm-hmm.
on the bus. This is a game you're playing by yourself, but there is an overall multiplayer meta that
Mm-hmm.
you can choose to engage in.
Yeah. Let's
Okay.
see. Calming or thrilling? Uh, it is more. This is not an RPG. This is not a turn-based game, so you're not really given the freedom to, relax during play, especially if you're trying to do the challenges of it. But
Okay.
it's definitely not as high stakes or as intensive as something like, as we talk about with Doom, or even with something like I'm assuming with Ghost Recon.
Yeah. So is it? So you said it's not turn-based, so it is like a real-time
Yeah.
fighting game. So
Hmm.
you're clicking buttons and doing things to fight.
Yeah, attack and defense and stuff like that.
Okay, so very much like Mortal Kombat you mentioned earlier, like sort of
Yeah.
combat style. Okay, um, or the
Maybe.
Injustice games. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm playing some gameplay right now just to get a rough idea of how it works. So you've got like different move sets and stuff that you're in
Yeah,
combos.
very light combos. It's nowhere near as complex as a traditional fighting game.
Okay, so it has that. And I'm just sort of speculating here based on what you told me. But is this a game that also has like calm moments where you're like doing the team building, your roster, or you're like
Yeah, like
managing stuff?
roster building, loot box opening, leveling up
That's
characters, stuff like
right.
that.
It sounds like that's an important part of the game, is
Yeah.
doing that stuff. Okay, so this is sort of where the question becomes tricky. Is like, is the game supposed to be very thrilling, or is it just sort of like, yeah, you're in combat,
Mm.
and are you like stressing about what's happening? Is your heart beating?
If
Um,
you're trying to do the high end rewards and the major challenges, it does get quite difficult. It is designed again to be against the player.
okay, all right.
Like
So maybe we'll be a little generous and say that yeah, it tries to have a good sense of thrill to it,
hmm
right? Okay, so we finish off that box, and maybe we'll talk about the blue one. Let's talk about the overall challenge of this game.
Okay. Yeah, you can put 3 in for work right now. I think that this is grindy loot box 100,000% in terms
Okay.
of its progression model. Because everything is tied to star quality of a character,
Hmm.
you don't get high star characters, you're not progressing in this game. Just full stop.
Okay.
And while there are crystals or while there are loot boxes that will guarantee certain star rarities, they are more expensive and harder to come by. So
Okay.
the majority of what people are going to be opening are crystals that give a spectrum of varying stars. So it's like 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6 kind of thing.
Okay.
And if I please, I'm going to try and remember this. I think it goes that if you're going to open up the normal 2 to 4 star loot box, it is a 70% chance for a 2 star, 20% chance for a 3 star, and a 3% chance to get a 4 star. So
Okay.
somehow I got one, and I am still not sure if that was by luck or if that was the game skewing that first loot box, as a lot of free to play games do.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Doctor Doom pool that I got, that was actually, I think, legitimately a rare character. That was I think I used up all my luck for 3 months just getting that one character.
Mhm.
But because of how progress is locked to your loot boxes and every rarity has a fixed amount of power you can get out of it, you have to rely on these loot boxes. I was watching people play, and if you want progress through the higher up challenges to get more rewards, you either need to pull the very best characters or you need to pull the highest rarity characters. Without
Mhm.
one or the other, you're not going to do it. And there's, again, or you spend lots of money, and I think it's, oh my god, the amount of money people I think have spent on this game, I don't want to think about, will make me very sad.
Yeah. I guess I have a question then.
Hmm.
as a designer looking at this, uh, do players? I'm sorry. Do the developers patch the game for balance? Is sort of my question.
I
Um,
believe they do. They
because
do obviously add in updates. They've added in
right,
more events, more champions. I
right.
believe they have patched characters, but
Okay,
I
because that would
don't
be my first
know.
question. Like thinking about this problem is, if you have a game, because I was right off the bat, I was assuming, okay, so they're always going to be adding, new characters so that
Hmm.
the people who are spending lots of money want to keep buying stuff, and you're going to end up with a power creep for the new stuff is generally probably better. I'm curious, like how much they patch the old
Yeah,
characters to
that.
bring them up. Just because you said something really interesting because you said you need either the highest tier
Hmm.
or just the best characters.
Yeah.
And I've never played this game, so I don't know what characters are good or bad. But for example, let's say Spider-Man at tier one is not very good, and Deadpool at tier one is pretty good. So so maybe for this raid or whatever, you could get away with a Deadpool level one or a
Hmm.
Spider-Man level three, and because Deadpool's a new character and he's harder to get or whatever, so you try to create this like
Hmm.
the new stuff that keeps getting added is stronger and stronger. Do you feel like they really care to go back and balance
I
Spider-Man, or
don't.
do they know that like it doesn't matter because people are just going to want the new stuff?
The irony is that what you just said is the reverse. Deadpool is one of the weakest characters, and Spider-Man is one of the best.
Oh, all right, all right.
And the issue is like I said, like the game's been going for at least 3, 4 years, give or take.
Okay.
And one thing
Yeah.
that I've noticed from a design standpoint is that the older champions use a stock kind of victory animation when it ends. Newer champions have a custom one. So I can
Okay.
kind of generally tell what's an older champion versus what's a
Based
newer
off of the
one.
animation set.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And
And as a developer, I'd say they probably just didn't have the budget in the
yeah.
beginning, and they didn't know if it was going to succeed. That's really interesting. Like, so this game's been around for 3 or 4 years, so there's actually
Hmm.
pretty big history of, their monetization, their patch cycle, so that we can look at here and talk about,
Yeah.
or you could tell me about because I haven't played it.
Yeah, and now I'm still very new into the game. Like, right now I am on chapter 4 of the story, which, to be fair, I don't think most people beat chapter 3 in about a month or so of playing. And,
Okay.
there's a lot more we can talk about there. But when you look at the difference in champions, you can see that newer champions just seem to have more to them. Like,
Okay.
more in terms of their passives, more in terms of what they bring to the table. Like, a big thing is, of course, being able to weaken the opponent or get buffs yourself. A lot,
Right.
excuse me, of the older champions are very light in terms of what they do. Newer champions, from what I've seen, and some of the ones I've been getting killed by, have a lot more unique rules and things that affect what they do. Like I said, with someone again, I go back to Doctor Doom because that's like my newest champion, one of the more powerful ones I have. Some of his powers allow him to do power drain. He can remove enemy buffs when he hits them with their special,
Okay.
and he of course has resistances to all manner of crazy things. If I look at some of the older champions, they may not have that. They may just do like one specific thing,
Okay.
and then that's it. And there have been complaints. I've watched like high level streamers who play the game, and there's definitely a consensus that there are champions who are all around. You want this guy on your team, and you get them with like their special ability unlock, it is going to carry you so much further than
Okay.
if you had a team fully ranked of all the other older characters.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Hearing you talk about this game actually reminds me. I played a a mobile game for like a solid like maybe 3 weeks
Hmm.
um, last summer 2018. That was the only time in my life that I've ever played a mobile game in any like serious capacity. And it was a game that was very similar. It was an Assassin's Creed mobile where you collected different characters and had different abilities. It was very, very similar to what you've been describing. You had a star system, and I actually really enjoyed that game.
Hmm.
Mostly because it was an Assassin's Creed game, and as I've said many times, I love that series. So when they're like, "Hey, we've got a mobile game," and I was actually on vacation with my girlfriend at the time, and I had to spend like a week at her parents' house. So I didn't have my computer with me. I couldn't play any other games. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. I was like, "Oh, I got my phone. I got this Assassin's Creed mobile game," and I spent a little too much time on it. But it was, I could definitely like see a lot of similarities with that sort of like you got to collect the characters, and some that are just better than others.
Yep.
I was playing it the week that game came out. That game came out like the week before I went on vacation, so they hadn't like started updating it with all the new stuff that was gonna be overpowered. So I'm actually kind of curious now if the game still exists and what the current balance is.
Yeah, I know there's a Mortal Kombat game that looks very similar to this one. I think they even tie rewards from that to Mortal Kombat 11 and vice versa, which is just peak marketing craziness.
I remember I don't remember the Mortal Kombat one. I realized we were on a huge side tangent here, but I remember when I was in high school, I think there was Injustice, which was the DC superheroes game, similar to Mortal Kombat. It was made by the same developers, and that game had a mobile version. And I remember being in school and like all of the kids were playing in my physics class. I remember everyone was playing that game, and I didn't play it, but I remember being very impressed by the graphical quality in that game. I remember thinking, wow, that game looks really good for a mobile game. So that's sort of my flashback now to like that. And I think that the fighting games like that are kind of perfectly suited for phones in a way that I never really thought about, because it's just you and one other person, so it's got multiplayer, but it's not like crazy multiplayer. It's a two-dimensional world, It's up, down, and back and forwards. So that works well on a phone where you don't have like complex controls like mouse and keyboard or a controller. So I think there is like a really good like market for fighting games on phones that, like, as a designer, I'm only now just like realizing, like, as we're talking about, I'm like, yeah, it's a pretty good place to put that type of game. And the short matches probably help too. You win a round in what, like 2 minutes? That's something you can do while you're waiting for class to start. When you're just waiting somewhere and you're not really doing anything. I think that helps too. That's a big draw to mobile games. If you can make your gameplay loop really fast, that's a huge help.
All right. And again, like, this kind of design has been perfected and refined over so many games.
Right. Okay, so how much skill is required to play Marvel Contest of Champions?
I would say a fair amount. There's a lot in terms, while it is loot box dependent, if you want to have any chance at some of these challenges, you need to figure out, what champions to build, what passives to get, and even just fighting them as well. Because, like I said, because characters get a third special attack, if your character is of a certain level below that or a certain power ranking, it will one-shot you. It doesn't matter if you've been winning the fight for the last 90% of it. If they get to a level 3 and you don't kill them before they pull that off, it will kill you. And it is very unfair. It is explicitly designed that way to kind of kill your characters and force you to spend resources. So many expert players have figured out kind of how to fight these enemies to trick the AI into using their weaker special attacks to burn through that meter.
Okay. So there's definitely a skill level to it. Is there a way to play the game if you're not good at it? If I just suck at fighting games, I'm just not going to be able to succeed with this game, right?
Yeah, you can. Money is definitely the way to get around that. Again, you can spend money, get 6-star characters or 6-star drops.
Okay, so we'll count the loot boxes as like a tick in the I'm not good at this, but I still want to win.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about the novelty of this game. Is this a game? What is the fantasy/realism in it?
It's definitely fantasy. Like, there is nothing.
It's a Marvel game, right?
Yeah, and even beyond that, this is a game where someone like the Punisher can beat up Galactus or beat up like cosmic level threats and shoot them with his gun. Like there is no real realism to this.
Okay. Um, is like the fantasy an important part of the game? Do you play it to like to see
There
the
is lore to the game. There is a story.
Mhm.
It's I think it's kind of like with Doom. It's there, but most likely if you're playing this game like over the long run, it's just all, numbers and loot boxes at that point. Like who cares what's
Okay.
happening with these characters?
And then what about like exploration and building? This sounds to me like a game that's very much about building things and creating a team, and strategies. And is there like stuff to explore and discover in the game?
Not really. This is a game that is energy minded, so you can't really explore. It's more like that fun paint or pay or weight design, and
Uh,
everything is on linear track. So you go down these specific nodes for all the quests. So there's nothing you can really do to outside what the game tells you to do.
okay. Um, would you? It sounds to me like there's quite a bit of team building you can do with like different characters to choose from, and that's something they tried to make a good part of the game. I mean,
Yeah.
if people are playing it competitively for years, would it be fair to say that it's somewhat good?
I would say yes. Again, it's one of those things where until you build up a massive roster, your whole team strategy is going to be who's my highest ranked character, put them on. That's basically it.
Yeah. Okay. Um, and finally, the final thing is the harmony area where we talk
Hmm.
about overall mechanics of the game. How good are the mechanics? How varied
Mm,
is it a mechanical game? Is it more of just a there's only a couple of things to do?
eh, it again, like there's some aspect of it, like how the character dynamics are, but again, it was designed around long-term grinding. So it's a
Okay.
very simple gameplay loop that is
Okay.
stretched out thanks to, the massive scale and advantages it gives the AI.
Okay. The game is about combat.
Hmm.
Is it about having fun combat?
Again, there's definitely balance issues with this game, and they're explicitly, again, designed to reward the AI over the player.
Okay. Um, lore, like we said, it has it.
Hmm.
If you want it, it's there.
Yeah.
Um, and the cooperativeness of the game, is there a sense of like working with other people or AI?
If you're doing like the alliance missions, yes.
Okay, so there is a way to play with other people. Is that like a sort of a big focus in the game?
It
Is that something
seems
there's a lot
to
to do there?
be like it's as with a lot of these free to play games, they really force you to join alliances in order to get
Okay,
more resources, more rewards. Like you can play the game without them, like I am, but
Mhm.
it is kind of like handicapping you in the process if you don't.
Okay. That just reminded me of another game that I would like to do on our next podcast episode. So I just
Hmm.
messaged you so I don't forget.
All right.
Um, so all right, I think I think the designers, or I think if I was designing this game, I would probably want to make sure that the combat was like good.
Hmm.
As soon as I haven't played it, I can't really judge it. But I think for me, this would be a game that because you are, like you said, it's real time combat,
Hmm.
and like thinking about this as a designer, if you could make that real time combat feel really good, then
Hmm.
you'd be able to hook people in on that because that's what you're doing a lot of the times, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds like they unfortunately focused more on the stats of your team rather than on the moment to moment gameplay.
Yeah, like the whole like level 3 super overriding everything else from a design standpoint, that was a huge mistake. From a monetization standpoint, that was explicitly designed that way. Because, like I said, you can completely dominate a fight, and then the second that character throws that level 3 super, you lose instantly. Like, there's nothing you can do once they get to that point.
Okay. All right. I tried to zoom out. Hopefully, the
Hmm.
pull images showing on YouTube. My
Yeah.
YouTube's a little buffered right now, so not great. There it is. Awesome. Yeah, so I think we've done a pretty fair analysis of this game, and I know you wanted to compare it to Warframe because they're both free to play. So just for if we remember what we did for Warframe, we decided that it had a very strong. I don't know where that's. Cover that up. That did not work. All right, we're gonna pretend that white dot is not there. I need to. We honestly, if we're gonna keep doing these episodes, I'd really like to find a better way of marking up the graphs. I'm gonna see if I can figure something out. But Warframe is a game that has very strong mechanics and combat and pretty decent story. And while it has grinding, just like Marvel has a lot of grinding. Warframe has a lot of grinding. Warframe also just has a lot more going on in the game. I think that they seem to fall into a lot of the same categories. Like they seem to focus more on fantasy and building, but Warframe just does a lot more of that, right?
Yeah.
It puts a lot more energy into making those excellent parts of the game, whereas Marvel is just sort of like it has it, it does it, you know?
Yeah, with Marvel, again, like 9 times out of 10, the answer to an issue is just throw money at it. That seems to be how they go.
Yeah.
Well, with Warframe, again, you can spend money in that game, but that won't help you if you're not good at the game to begin with.
Right. Yeah, and like for me, Warframe is that you can spend money to get new stuff and skip some waiting, But like really, whenever I spend money on like gameplay mechanics in Warframe, spending money on new weapons and characters, I feel like I'm just cheating myself. I'm skipping gameplay that I could be playing, And the only reason I've ever bought characters in that game is because I just didn't have the time to grind them out and play the quest, to get the stuff. And I was like, well, I want it now, and I've got $10 or whatever. That's fine. I'll just buy it. But then I've always gone back and I've still played the quest that could have unlocked it anyways. I end up doing it later.
Yeah. All right.
So I guess for our final game, we're going to talk about Ghost Recon Breakpoint, a game that I have been playing a lot of recently. So Ghost Recon Breakpoint is a game that came out last year, I believe. And have you ever played any of the Ghost Recon games, Josh?
I don't think so.
Okay. So they are a tactical shooter with a massive open world. So Breakpoint, the premise of the game is you are a ghost, a U.S. Special Forces operative, and you're on this helicopter and you're going to this island to investigate something with your team, and then your helicopter gets shot down and you crash on the island, and that's it. That's literally the opening. You just crash on an island, you're in a helicopter, your leg's broken, and you pick a pistol up off the corpse of your teammate. That's the opening of the game, which I found, like, I really like this game for a number of reasons. I like it now. The game came out last year, and before that, I actually played in the closed alpha, closed pre-alpha, and everything. So I was interested in it during the closed alpha and the closed pre-alpha and all that stuff. And the game came out, and the reviews were not kind to it because essentially what they did is the Ghost Recon games as a series are about it's a tactical stealth shooter. So you infiltrate bases, you take out guards, you monitor the patrols, and then you complete your mission. You steal some intel, you take out a leader, something like that, right? And the games are sort of known for a lot of attention to detail and realism, and like a very like gritty stealth game is how I say about it. Not like super gritty, but like it feels realistic, right? The previous game, Ghost Recon Wildlands, you were in Bolivia. There's a massive map. The map was like pretty much the entire country. It felt like, I'm sure it wasn't, but it felt like a country. And it was seamless. You could fly everywhere. It was a fun game. Sometimes it felt kind of arcadey, like you could just blow things up instead of going stealth. That was sort of the complaint with that game, was like you could just go loud and guns blazing, blow things up, but the game still made sense, You could play it stealthy if you want. And then Breakpoint, what they did at launch they sort of made it into Borderlands. They added tiered loot for weapons and
Okay.
armor. With so color tiered stuff where white is basic and orange is legendary stuff. And so you would be going through the world and you'd be opening up chests and finding random guns in there that might have better stats than the guns you already have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you might have a sniper rifle that's the white color, and then you go and you find one that's orange tier, and so you upgrade to that one because it does more damage, right?
So it's kind of like with like the Division, what they did with like their like weapon system.
Yeah, very similar to the Division. I mean, they're both games published by Ubisoft, and they're both under the Tom Clancy franchise. So yes, very much like the Division. So yeah, it was Division style looting in the Ghost Recon game, and all the enemies were tiered too. So you had enemies that would be super bullet spongy if you didn't have a higher tier sniper rifle, things like that, right? And the problem that this created is the game no longer was a tactical stealth game. It was a looter shooter, right? You couldn't, because all the previous games were all about realism. One sniper round to the head takes out that guard, and you knew that, right? Because the game is supposed to feel realistic. And then all of a sudden they add this loot system in. Well, maybe your sniper rifle was level 1, that guard was level 20. You can't take him out. Then you just can't do that mission. So you're gonna have to go do side quests to find a better loot. So that's why I didn't buy the game at launch. Was I heard about that and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna stay away from that. Right? Enough people complained about it. It's a very long story. But the good news is that last week or the week before, like 2 weeks ago, they released a massive update to the game that basically made it like Breakpoint 2.0. And so what they did is they added an immersive mode to the game. So now when you start a new game file, you can choose whether you're going to play the way the game was at launch, or you can choose the immersive mode. And if you choose the immersive Breakpoint mode, you can also tweak you can tweak all of the settings of how immersive you want it to be. So you can do like a custom game sort of in between immersive and the arcadey looter shooter that it launched as. I've been playing it in pure immersive mode, and what that does is it removes all of the looting and shooting. It's every gun all the guns are like the same tier. All the enemies are the same tier. You can pick up anybody's gun. Like you shoot a guard, you can just grab their gun. You don't have to just get guns out of chests and anything anymore. Like every weapon in the game that any NPC is using, you can grab and pick up and use it. There is no more armor. Like you can't get better health. You just have like 3 health bars. That's it. You can't get any more armor or health really in any way. Maybe through the skill tree or something, but like you're not looting for your personal protection. You can just turn off the HUD. Like the HUD's just completely gone. There's no mini map. There's no quest markers. Like everything just gets turned off, and they only like show like prompts and things when you actually need them. And it's great. I love the game. I love the game in immersive mode. It's one of the like best single player experiences I've had in years. And so that's sort of the long story about this game. And now I guess we'll sort of break it down into its components. So I think the game is really good now. It's really well executed in immersive mode. I haven't played it in the previous mode, so this is sort of my big disclaimer about how I'm rating it. I'm rating it as it currently stands with immersive mode and not what it was at launch. So this is a game that is totally about exploration in my mind. It's you get a map of a chain of islands, an archipelago, and there's a couple of quests that you get, and then you just go talk to more NPCs and you get more quests. And in immersive mode, they don't give you actual indicators of where to go for the quests. They just give you like clues. They're like, the quest might be something like take out this leader, right, of the enemy faction, and they'll tell you he's at the mosquito swamp, right? And you'll be like, okay, cool. That's it. They just tell you it's near the mosquito swamp next to the lighthouse.
Yeah, like you must go right here. Go to this blinking light.
Yeah, there's no indications. They just give you a map. The map has a bunch of like labels. Okay, this is that swamp. That's that mountain range. Here's a forest with this name. and it'll give you directions. It's north, south, east, west of that, right? And you got to piece together, right, where is he? And then you can put a little pin on your map, and then you can see your pin when you're navigating through the world of where you think the guy might be, right? And then you'll grab a helicopter and you'll fly over there, and hopefully you were right and he was there, and if he's not, then you got to keep looking. So far, I've never had to turn on any sort of hints to find anyone, but I know I can. I can go into my settings at any time and turn off that part of the immersive experience if I really get stuck and can't progress through the main mission. But I've been playing for like 10 hours or something now, 10, 20 hours. I haven't gotten stuck yet, so I don't think I will. So this game is very much about exploration. I'm having a ton of fun with it. The exploration is excellent, in my opinion. You get to go through the world. The clues are great. I'm finding stuff, finding things to do. There's not really any building so much to say. There's a little bit, I guess. Like, you can choose different items for your character to use. You pick up different guns. You're collecting weapons and things like that. But there's not a huge amount. Like, I'm not building a house in Minecraft, or I'm not really doing much of it. It's mostly just personal loadout customization.
So there is no. So with like the newer version, with like the immersion mode set on, do you still have like skill trees and perks in that mode?
Yes. So you have a very basic skill tree, I guess. So the skill tree unlocks things like what does it unlock? Like, you can sprint a little longer or a little faster, things like that. And a lot of times you have to select which perks from the skill tree you want to be active. So it's like you can have like 2 perks active, so you can unlock a bunch of perks, and then you just like equip 2 of them.
So it's kind of like what they did with like the Division, like the various signature moves or a tech that you can unlock them, but you're limited to 2 that you have equipped at any time.
Yeah, and some of them, I think the more passive ones, you can have you don't have to put into a slot, like the better sprinting, like longer sprinting and stuff like that. You don't really have to put into a slot, but it's very similar to that type of system.
Okay.
And so I actually played the first 10 hours of the game without opening up the skill tree because I didn't know there was a skill tree. That is the one fault I will give the mode. They don't really like tutorial you. It's like I said, you get dropped on an island out of a helicopter. And I played it in immersive mode on purpose because I already played during the closed alpha, which didn't have this mode, and they were like, "There's some prompts about where to go and stuff like that." I was like, "I don't want it." So there was I didn't see the tutorial about the skill tree, and the way they do the tutorials in the like immersive mode is when you like open up a menu and it's not fully explained. There's like a little icon in the upper corner where it's like hit T to see the tutorial for this menu. We're not going to give you the tutorial unless you press a button. Which is great. Like, if you're really confused and you're looking around, you're like, oh, there's a flashing thing in the corner. Hit T. I didn't think that there might be a skill tree in this game. I just assumed there wasn't. So I went for 10 hours without like upgrading my character at all, and I didn't feel like I was being held back. And then I started upgrading it, and I bought things like the only thing that I was upgrading I really cared about was like I bought like night vision goggles and a parachute. And I was like, okay, here's stuff that I remember from the previous game that I was missing. I was like, why don't I have a parachute? And then I was playing with Kyle, my roommate, because the game has co-op, and I'll get to that in a minute. And he was like, "Yeah, man, I found a skill tree, and I got night vision goggles." I'm like, "You got what?" Yeah, so the game has a little bit of building, but not really a lot.
Okay.
I'm going to give the game a 3 for realism. Realism was paramount to the development of this game. It oozes realism in every way that they could do it, right? And it's in the small details. I think that like people who appreciate this type of game really appreciate the small details.
Does it have like the kind of like like the future tech abilities, like the Division?
Yeah. And I was going to say that it also has an element of fantasy as well. Like you have some future tech stuff. You've got drones that can. Well, drones are real now too, but like you've got some stuff, bit fantastical, but it's all within that like Tom Clancy future tech. Like you could see it as fine, we'll probably have this sort of technology in 5 years, so it has that element of fantasy, but they have a lot of realism, even down to when your character is standing idle. They pay attention to how your character is holding his gun, so his finger's not on the trigger, like very small things like that your gun nuts and stuff will like really be like, oh, that's awesome that they're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Things that I wouldn't even notice. Like all the animations are done with such care to be like, yeah, this is how you actually do this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of things they added in Breakpoint that was new from Wildlands that also adds to the sort of realism factor. The injury system is it's not like super realistic, but it's an attempt at making you feel like this is a real world.
Mm-hmm.
Making you bandage up your wounds after a firefight, otherwise you're just going to be limping through the rest of the map.
Are
Um,
there any like with regard to like the exploration? Are there like secrets and collectibles and stuff to find on the map?
yes, yeah, there's definitely stuff to collect around the map. Me and Kyle one time we stole a boat and then we looked at the map and we're like, hey, there's this island on the edge of the map that we haven't been to. We're just going to take this boat and go over there.
Go on a little joyride.
Yeah, so we went on this little like tiny little motorboat and sailed it like 15 minutes over open water to get to the abandoned island on the edge of the map. And we get there, and there was like two enemies. I take that back. There were two human enemies, and then a bunch of drones. And the drones in this game are like the toughest enemies to fight, but we just snuck around them. And we found this like abandoned like cove. It was like almost like underwater, and you went in there, and there's like a chest with some supplies. And we opened up the chest, and there's this sniper rifle in there, and it was a really good sniper rifle. And there was like we didn't have to fight anyone to get to it. We just like snuck past and we found it. There was no markers on the map. So there's definitely like secret loot and like other like clues and stuff hidden around the map about the story. So there's a lot of exploration.
All right.
So I guess let's talk about grinding and skill in this.
Mm-hmm.
The game's not super grindy. Like in immersive mode, there's a little bit of like I have to help in complete faction missions and stuff like that to advance certain plot lines.
Okay.
So I'll say that it has worked in that aspect. If you want to like do all the side quests, some of them seem to be fairly similar. I haven't actually played enough of the side quests to be like, oh, here's the rescue mission 5 repeated.
In immersive mode, do they have the same kind of like level gating like they do in like the Division, Assassin's Creed, and stuff like that?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, your character has a level that's purely just tied to your skill tree, but they don't lock. I haven't seen them lock off any mission content.
And like the one thing that drove me crazy about Assassin's Creed when I played it was the whole, like if the enemy is 4 levels above you, it doesn't matter if you are the best assassin, you will never beat that enemy, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, that was also something that bothered me with the newer Assassin's Creed games, which is why I haven't finished Origins. Like I said, we could do an entire podcast on Assassin's Creed. And in terms of like not work, there are ways. I'll say this: there are ways to get around certain things in the game, and I'll classify that as not work.
Mm-hmm.
For example, weapons. And again, only speaking from immersive mode, but in immersive mode, you can carry 2 primary weapons and a sidearm. So it might be a shotgun, an assault rifle, and then you do not get an inventory of spare guns. I like if I decide that I'm going to pick up, maybe I've got the assault rifle, a sniper rifle, and a pistol, and I kill a guard who has a shotgun, right? And I'm like, hey, I want his shotgun. And I put down my assault rifle and I grab that shotgun. I have put down my assault rifle and picked up that shotgun. Like I no longer have an assault rifle. And I can go back to, my camp, right? My like safe zone. I no longer have an assault rifle. I can save and exit the game and come back to the game. I now have the shotgun. I no longer have my assault rifle. So they do a really immersive way of tracking which gun you have, and that's sort of a bit of what I would say like the grind in some ways is like, hey, I actually need to go get this gun so that I can do something. Maybe I don't have a sniper rifle. It's sometimes like not having the right tool because you put it down. The workaround to that is you can go back to the like rest area and you can buy certain guns from a shopkeeper with the in-game resources you've collected and stuff. So you can craft a gun that you haven't picked up and sort of skip the going out and searching for it aspect of the game. That's sort of like the work and the not work that I've experienced has been which weapon do you have? Are you going to go search for it or are you just going to try and buy it? It's a lot easier to find guns than buy them in my opinion, which is good. I'm glad that they didn't really like spend a lot of time with like, yeah, you've got to shop for your guns,
Mm-hmm.
The skill in the game it's got a decent skill level, especially like because you can tweak the difficulty in the game. That's sort of where I'll say like, hey, you can turn down the skill level, play it on easy mode, play it on hard mode. It's going to be a different experience for you. It sort of covers a wide range of
Mm-hmm.
players there.
But it still seems similar to like Division that if you're not good at aiming, you're going to be in for a lot of trouble. Unless I assume
Yeah,
maybe they have
yeah.
like an auto aim or
Yeah, I
aim
don't know if they
guidance.
have an auto aim, but definitely it's a game. I would say that aiming in the game is not super important because it's more of a stealth game than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be smart. You can complete a lot of things without like getting into a large fight, right? You can just like take that one shot, take that guy out with a silent pistol, and keep
Mm-hmm.
sneaking around. So you can play a lot of the game without being good at shooters. I'm not like a particularly good first-person shooter player. So I play a lot of the games as a very stealthy person. But that still takes skill of a different kind.
Okay.
Um, and then talking about combat cooperativeness, the game has co-op, and the co-op is excellent. I love the co-op in the game, so I would say that it's honestly way more fun in co-op to play this game. You get to take down different guards at the same time, try and synchronize so you can help each other out if you get injured. One of you can drive the tank while the other one shoots. And those are just experiences you can't have in single player.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, so there's great co-op. Combat is also really good in my opinion. Like the combat and cooperative elements of the game were very important to designers.
It
Uh,
seems kind of like what they did with the Division as well, in terms of like that kind of focus.
right, right. The story is there. I'm not going to say much else. It's got a story. If you really want to pay attention, it's okay. It does its job. I'm not really cringing that much during the story, so it's okay. It's there, but it's not wide playing.
Okay.
You know, uh, it's mostly like, yeah, I'm gonna go take down this base, do stuff here. The mechanics in the game are really good in my mind. Like maybe not the best in class, but I feel like my love for the mechanics comes more from the realism aspect than it does from the like mechanics themselves. I'm like, does that make sense?
Yeah,
It's
like
like
it's not
the
a,
mechanics are enhanced by their attention to detail and realism. You know.
but it's not a mechanically like deep game. Like it's not.
Um, yeah, it's got good mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
It's a stealth game. You got crouching and prone, and it's got some cool things. Like if you go prone in the dirt, you can like hit another button and then cover your character with like dirt and mud to blend in even more with like camouflage.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that in the snow to like blend in snow. And that's really cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool mechanics, and I'm tempted to give it a 3 in mechanics because of all the cool stuff you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that temptation really just comes from the intersection of all those things and through the realism. And I'm so tempted to just be like, yeah, it's one of the best. Just I love this game so much. I'm just gonna be like somewhere in there. Like for me, I absolutely love all of the different mechanics and how they come together, rather than like any individual mechanic feeling awesome.
It's the sum of its parts kind of design.
Yeah, yeah. It's also a game that really, I think, benefits from a player with an active imagination and like going out and trying things in ways that you think will be fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, I'm gonna try and do this mission this way just because I'm telling a story to myself. You know, rather than like trying to find the best solution to do
Mm-hmm.
things. Um, that's sort of like that's what I really like about it. It's like, okay, here's a guard tower. What do I think would be cool to do? How do I think it would be cool to take this out? Do I want to throw a distraction? Do I want to try and like create a distraction over there so the guard's going to investigate, even though I could take them out with a sniper shot right now? Because maybe that distraction is just a fun story that I can create myself. Um, and finally, the game has multiplayer. Um, it's also a single player experience. I think it was designed as a single player experience.
Mm.
But it definitely shines in single player.
Okay.
It also has played in co-op. Co-op is quite good. I think it has good co-op. It was designed as a single player game. It's quite thrilling, and you have a lot of calm moments. Calm moments. are sort of coming from when you're traveling between areas
Yeah.
or exploring. But definitely the focus is on those tense moments when you're seeing through the base, trying not to get detected and all of that.
Yeah. Are there any multiplayer exclusive content in the game?
Yes, I have not played any of it yet, but there is. There is also a PvP element that I have not played in this game yet. I did play the PvP in the previous game a little bit. Um, I can't comment too much on it. It's there. If you want to use the shooter mechanics and fight against other players, you can. I don't know if this game adds anything to the PvP. And then there are sort of raids that you can do that are it's basically like going through a dungeon. There's more enemies and it's harder. And they recommend that you do those in groups, players. You don't have to though. You can do the raids single, I believe.
Okay.
But they do warn you, when you go to select the mission, they're we recommend you do this with a teammate or two. It's going to be hard.
Okay. Trying to think there's any.
That's sort of how I feel about the game, but maybe you have some different questions I can answer as someone who hasn't played the game.
So I'm assuming with the immersive mode on, like you said, it turns off a lot of the looter shooter aspects of it. So there's no such thing as I know in the Division they have the highest quality, the super rare guns have special passives and things you could use with them.
Sorry, can you say that one again?
That in the Division, when they got full looter shooter, they had legendary guns that had special passives and perks attached to them.
Mm-hmm.
Does Breakpoint have that?
Kind of. Yeah, there are the guns. I haven't seen anything legendary in the immersive mode.
Mm-hmm.
But there definitely is. There's actually a full attachment to. Actually, every gun can be modified a little bit. That's one of the things really cool about the Ghost Recon games is you can change out all the scopes. You can add different magazines and triggers and laser sights and a bunch. I remember in the previous game I had an assault that I put an under grenade launcher. That. So they were pretty in depth customizations.
So it's kind of again what they did with the Division too, having that whole modding.
Yes, yes they do. That's actually one of the things that I really admire about Ubisoft. It feels like they have, they've got a big, wall of game systems, and they just pick things off that wall, and then they combine them together for games. And then when they make something, they make it a little better. Then the next game they make that part, it has the updated version of that. Most of their open world games have a driving system. Watch Dogs, you can drive cars. Ghost Recon, you can drive cars.
Yep.
They also have just straight up racing games. So, and I feel what they probably do is when they come up with a racing game. What was their racing game? Shoot, I played it. I think it begins with The Crew. I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
So, when The Crew 2 came out, I'm sure they updated all of their driving physics and how the cars handle things like that. And they tried to make that better, and the vehicle destruction system, so you bump your fenders, scratch things. I'm sure they did a lot of work to make that better because it was a game focused on cars. And then I bet you that they took that code and that updated stuff, and they put that into all their newer games that have driving stuff. Breakpoint comes out the next year, and they're hey, we're going to put in all of our paint scratching code from, and you put that in there for the vehicles there. I think that's really cool. As a publisher with a bunch of studio working on games, you can have overlap in your mechanics and reuse your code and your gameplay system in different games. And then as you make those better, you share it with everyone else. I hope that's what they do. I hope they're not because it certainly feels very similar. Cars and Ubisoft games always handle very similar. I went on that long rant because you said the Division modding. I'm sure the gun modding crosses over a little two games.
All right. Yeah, I think this was another very interesting talk. We picked 3 very different games. So I guess any insights can you kind of divine from that chart? It does in a way reminds me again of the Division. Like you said, Ubisoft's games tend to not necessarily like copy each other like outright, but they tend to feature very similar pools and design. Because I'm sure in a weird way, with a little bit of tweaking, that could be applied what we just had for something like the Assassin's Creed games in terms of its single player design. And in another way, could even be, again, going back to the Division or to some of their more action oriented titles.
So what insights would I have based on? I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the question is here.
Like anything like from a design standpoint, you think sticks out about how the game falls on that motivation chart.
Um, I think that looking at Breakpoint, they I think that the things that they really learned from were um, I guess Ubisoft does a lot of stuff with world building. Like that's a huge thing what they do. And I think they're sort of known for is building believable worlds. You see it with Assassin's Creed, you see it with a lot of their games where they build open worlds with lots of stuff to do that um, feel very real. Um, and I think that's just again like what they were doing in this game is that it's a very like a lot of stuff in the game feels real, even though it's also a future tech type of game. Um, and I think that they probably learned a lot from all their previous games doing historical research, even though in this case it's more like speculative future history.
Yeah. I would be curious if you ever get a chance to play the game like in its original, more looter shooter
Oh man,
aspect.
don't ask me to do that. If I do that, I will update you on how it feels. I have a strong feeling I'm never going to do that. I just like immersive mode too much. Um,
It does make me wonder, like for myself, when I first heard of the Division, from what you describe Breakpoint as immersive mode, is kind of in a way a little bit more of what I want out of the Division. Not as much of a looter shooter focus, but maybe a shooter with very subtle RPG mechanics. Like I would go on a whole Borderlands rant right now if we had another like 2 hours to spare. But
yeah,
like that whole aspect just like when you were describing the whole, I'm gonna get the drop on this guy with my sniper rifle, shoot him in the head. Oh wait, he's 5 levels above my gun. The bullet just, it just tickles, his scalp.
right.
This high-powered
Yeah,
sniper rifle, that just kills my enjoyment of that kind of game.
yeah. I think it's kind of funny you said that because when I started playing the previous game, Ghost Recon Wildland,
Hmm.
back in 2018, I was I had a different roommate. I was living in the dorm, and I started playing that game, and my roommate came over and he was like, "Oh, what are you playing?" I just showed it to him. He's like, "That looks like the Division, but what I wanted from the Division." He also tried playing the Division. I think he was frustrated. Talk about the bullet sponginess.
Hmm.
Like, that looks like what I wanted from the Division. So I think that's a pretty common sentiment. Is if you enjoyed the idea of the Division, but you didn't really want to do the bullet sponginess,
Hmm.
I would sort of steer people towards the Ghost Recon franchise as more of a realistic tactical stealth game. And you don't have to play it as a stealth game.
Hmm.
It's just how I choose to play it.
Hmm.
Um, it is possible to do it guns blazing. You're probably just gonna have to be better at shooting guns than I am.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's an interesting game series, and I'm honestly hoping that Breakpoint doesn't kill the franchise. Um,
Hmm.
because it came out and people hated it. Like
Hmm.
people really did not like it when it came out last year. And you like came forward and they said, "We hear you guys. We hear that you didn't like it. We're gonna fix this." They were very like open about that. And they listened to feedback when people said they didn't like it. They said, "Okay, we're gonna update it." And they came out with this update a couple weeks ago. They put the game on sale, like 60% off when the update came. They did a free weekend. You could play it for free and try it. And even now, there's like you can just get a demo and play like for 6 hours for free.
Yeah, it's
Um,
on sale right now. I just checked
yeah,
the Uplay store.
yeah. So they were like, "All right, we're gonna fix it." We didn't like charge people to buy it again, or anything. They're just like, "Yeah, we're gonna put it on sale. We'll let you try it for free." you can invite your friends to play co-op with you for free up through June. That's something they just announced like a couple days ago. They were like, yeah, so if you own the game, I can invite anyone that I'm friends with to just play the game in co-op with me for free as much as they want up through June. I think it's a combination of their way of like doing something while we're all in quarantine. Go play co-op in our game, and I think that's awesome. I really, and I hope that this means that they get to make another game like. It's a type of thing that I'm really just into, and I really want to make. I'm interested in making games like this. And when Breakpoint came out, and I've been playing. I'm like, I'm still waiting for that moment where I'm like, this is something I would do.
Yeah, me interested. I'm now debating adding another game to the backlog of eternity.
Well, if you do get it, you should play it with me and Kyle. Up to 4 players, and so far I've only got 2 people to play with, both myself and Kyle. So we've got room, and I will happily play it with and show you what's up.
All right. But I think with that, let's wrap things up for our live chat. Again, for people watching, you can check out Silas's game Revan. And what is the best way for them to find out more information about that?
All right, so if you're looking to find out about the game I'm making, you want to go over to revengame.com. It's pretty much the best place to find everything else about the game, links to our social media. We did just start a YouTube channel as well to upload videos about the game and things like that. We're going to be doing some dev blogs and other stuff on there. Follow us on Twitter at RevenGame. We're trying to do a lot of really cool stuff right now, so hopefully you guys can follow along and be a part of that.
All right. And you can follow me on Twitter as always, at GWBeister. There's links to our Patreon and Discord down below. The Discord is open to anyone to be invited on. But we'll be back for regular game streaming later tonight, and we're going to shoot for another one of these discussions next month. So if you have any suggestions for games you want Silas and I to examine here, let us know in the comments below. But Silas, as always, best of luck with Revan, and definitely stay safe with everything that's going on, and ideally we will be back in 1 month's time for another chat.
All right, sounds great, Josh. Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone, have a great rest of your night, and come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Until next time, take care. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel link down below, where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it. And tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.